What happened is we grew lonely living among the things. So we gave the clock a face, the chair a back, the table 4 stout legs, which will never suffer fatigue. We fitted our shoes with tongues as smooth as our own and hung tongues inside bells so we could listen to their emotional language. And because we loved graceful profiles, the pitcher received a lip, the bottle a long, slender neck. Even what was beyond us was recast in our image. We gave the country a heart, the storm an eye, the cave a mouth, so we could pass into safety. Taking a comfortable seat, feet flat, feeling your back resting against the chair back. Lengthening the neck just a little bit. Straightening the back just a millimeter or two. Week after week, you might notice that it gets a little bit easier each time. Hands facing upward on your lap, or whatever is consistent with your tradition. And then softening the face, softening the shoulders. And then softening them again. And it's only now you can get to those undefended places inside the heart. Opening the clanging doors, taking off all the armor. Softening the belly. Letting the breaths deepen. 4 counts in. 5 counts out. You might say to yourself, breathing in, I know that I'm here. Breathing out, I feel safe and at home. Breathing in, I know that I'm here. Breathing out, I feel safe and at home. You might feel that now you're in that cathedral space where the walls seem to widen, though nothing changes in the room. You might feel the presence or the songs of birds outside that you hadn't heard before. Or just a spectacular awareness. We talked about the regal witness who just stands back with repose and receives and lets go of it all. That's who's watching now. Things. What happened is we grew lonely living among the things. So we gave the clock a face, the chair a back, the table 4 stout legs, which will never suffer fatigue. We fitted our shoes with tongues as smooth as our own, and hung tongues inside bells so we could listen to their emotional language. And because we loved graceful profiles, the pitcher received a lip, the bottle a long, slender neck. Even what was beyond us was recast in our image. We gave the country a heart, the storm an eye, the cave a mouth, so we could pass into safety. We focused very much on deep looking, devoted noticing this semester. And as it comes to an end, I want to include deep listening in these activities. This poem is certainly about a very deep listening that seems to operate in 3 phases at the same time. Lisel Mueller's poetry is fairly well known in the United States, although she spent her whole career here. She taught at the University of Chicago. She won a Pulitzer Prize. She won a National Book Award. She was born in 1924 in Hamburg, and her family escaped Nazi Germany in 1939. And you can see her own story written between the lines of this poem, even in that last stanza. What was beyond us was recast in our image. We gave the country a heart, the storm an eye, the cave a mouth, so we could pass into safety. There's an acknowledgement in this poem from the outset of separation, loneliness, a feeling of not being safe, of not being at home, and the ways that we create connections with the outside in order to feel comfortable, in order to quell fear. But when we talk about the mouth of the cave or the storm or the heart of the country, in this poet, I can't help but think about the more ominous ways that those images can be read. The last stanza seems to be written from the post-traumatic memories of somebody who was thrust out from the inside and someone who had to seek safety, who was displaced, or someone even deported. I said that this poem seems to operate on three phases, and this is just my own idea, but there is a phase here that seems to be very connected to childhood and the way that we impose human features on the things around us outside. Maybe in childhood, everything is so new that we don't recognize ourselves in the world. And so this is merely just a defense mechanism, a way of surviving, a very pure desire that children have to feel the end of separation, or to acknowledge maybe what they already remember, which is that everything is connected, even though the adult world seems to tell them again and again, no, it's not, no, it's not. But in childhood, we remember that feeling of not feeling safe, of feeling lonely, of feeling different. And this naming of things is using language to say, oh, how are you like me? Is a very natural extension of the childhood imagination. There seems to be another phase at work here too, which is more akin to science. A little bit of a resistance to this. Do you feel that too as you're hearing this poem? That this poem thinks mournfully about the way that we impose human features on the world, on things specifically here, but also on animals, that we don't give things the dignity of being themselves in their unknowability, in a Keatsian negative capability way. Why can't we just sit with the unknown? Why do we have to find an answer? Why do we have to name it so quickly? And I think that science is trying to do that. It's trying to see things as they really are. It's seeking reality in the most basic and practical of ways. We want to grow up. And that second phase seems to be the attempt to break away from the idealism of childhood and its names. However, it still leaves us with that feeling of loneliness all over again. We're exiled all over again. There's a third phase too, which is, I think, the purpose of everything that we're doing here. And it's to look at this naming through a spiritual light. But it's not naming anymore. If you'll notice in that stanza where she says, we fitted our shoes with tongues as smooth as our own and hung tongues inside bells so we could listen to their emotional language. It's not so much about naming as it is about listening, which is the highest stage that we can reach in our contact with the outside, because when we get there, there is no outside. Inside and outside are moot points. It's the experience of interbeing, the emptiness of a separate self. And even though things seem to be speaking different dialects, they're all speaking the same language. It's the language of energy and the language of consciousness. And that seems to be what's happening here with this moment where we're listening to the emotional language of the bells. What I like to say is it's not so much how are you like me at this point, but at the spiritual level, we begin to ask, how am I like you, tree? How am I like you, small coin? It's a total reverse where we're going to it rather than asking it to come to us. And it seems to be a tenet of human animal studies too, which again tries to offer the animal the dignity of being its own being without the imposition of human characteristics on it. So this poem is to me about the beginnings of learning the dialects of things, though we're all speaking the same language. Here's what David Abrams says about the dialects of the trees. Just listen to this, and I'll include it in my newsletter for you all. This is David Abrams from Becoming Animal. Language is less a human possession than it is a property of the animate earth itself, an expressive, telluric power in which we, along with the coyotes and crickets, all participate. Each creature enacts this expressive magic in its own manner. The honeybee with its waggle dance, no less than a bellicose, harumphing sea lion. Nor is this power restricted solely to animals. The whispered hush of the uncut grasses at dawn, the plaintive moan of trunks rubbing against one another in the deep woods, or the laughter of birch leaves as the wind gusts through their branches, all bear a thicket of many layered meanings for those who listen carefully. Things. What happened is we grew lonely living among the things. So we gave the clock a face, the chair a back, the table 4 stout legs, which will never suffer fatigue. We fitted our shoes with tongues as smooth as our own and hung tongues inside bells so we could listen to their emotional language. And because we loved graceful profiles, the pitcher received a lip, the bottle a long, slender neck. Even what was beyond us was recast in our image. We gave the country a heart, the storm an eye, the cave a mouth, so we could pass into safety. Going back to that comfortable seat. Let's spend the last 10 minutes learning the dialects of things. Deepening the breath again. Four counts in. Five counts out. Holding your attention at the heart, which is the organ of deep listening. I love this word dialect, the way that it suggests it's all one language, spoken differently. Just choose an object in your midst as an anchor and ask yourself, like, I'm looking at an African violet. What's the dialect of this African violet? Not how does it speak a language like me, but how do I speak a language like it? In what ways can I only stand to be watered from underneath? I feel that. In what ways are my leaves usefully bristly in my given environment? In what ways are my flowers and their petals delicately soft and incredibly precious when they appear? We're speaking a dialect with our neighbor, but it's all a part of the language of a unified, interconnected self. It's all the language of the regal watcher. It says, we're unhappy because we've forgotten we belong to each other. This language we're listening for is the language of belonging. Emily Dickinson describes the heavens as a bell in all of being but an ear. This deep listening is rooted in the spiritual purpose of poetry. breathing out to extend the breath by just another second. Four counts in. Five counts out. Maybe if it feels comfortable, putting your hand over that organ of deep listening, the heart, as though to keep it open beyond the meditation as long as you can. In that position of belonging, of deep safety. Things by Lisel Mueller. What happened is we grew lonely living among the things. So we gave the clock a face, the chair a back, the table four stout legs, which will never suffer fatigue. We fitted our shoes with tongues as smooth as our own, and hung tongues inside bells so we could listen to their emotional language. And because we loved graceful profiles, the pitcher received a lip, the bottle a long, slender neck. Even what was beyond us was recast in our image. We gave the country a heart, the storm an eye, the cave a mouth, so we could pass into safety. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David.
Thank you all.